Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
I sent a message to unmute. Hare Krishna. Mother Medavni, you are muted.
Am I audible now?
Very well.
Hare Krishna. On behalf of the team of Evolve Pune, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you who have joined us through Zoom as well as on YouTube. This is Medhavni Saki Devidasi. Very grateful for the opportunity to serve all of you as your host this evening. I especially thank all of you who've taken your time out on a weekday to attend this program. Today we are continuing with part 2 of the topic, the greatest lie ever told, as part of our 6-topic series on dealing with COVID crisis through the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. So in part 1 of this topic that was discussed yesterday, His Grace Madan Sundar Prabhuji clearly delivered this truth that I'm not this body, I'm an eternal spirit soul. And to say that I'm this body and this body is all in all is indeed the greatest lie ever told. So Prabhuji explained the existence of the soul through an interactive activity with the participants, through the shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, through videos, and also through various logical explanations. So to elaborate further on this deep subject matter of soul, I now invite His Grace Madan Sundar Prabhuji to take us along with him in this wonderful journey of discovering more about the soul from the perspective of logic, science, and scripture. Over to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Om Jnanatimidandasya ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः. Hare Krishna. So we welcome each one of you for another evening and another program of this series of topics that we are covering under this title of Deal with COVID Crisis Through the Wisdom of Bhagavad Gita. We are on the third topic, titled as The Greatest Lie Ever Told. So yesterday we just 1 second. Hare Krishna. Looks like my computer got a little hanged. Give me a quick second. Okay, it's working now. All right, yeah. So yesterday we began our discussion on this topic, titled as The Greatest Lie Ever Spoken. So here in this discussion, we spoke on the subject matter of who am I? According to science, we are a bundle of chemicals. We have discussed this a few times in the last few sessions. Richard Dawkins in 1976 published a paper where he hypothesized the creation of life by saying that chemicals combine together to create a unicellular organisms combine together to create a multicellular and the complex cellular structures of beings like us. However, the scripture says, any Vedic text for that reason, or even Bhagavad Gita says, we are not the body, but a spirit soul. And an analogy is given in the scriptures where our existence is compared to that of a vehicle. Our body is like a vehicle which is carrying a passenger, and the passenger is the soul. As long as the passenger or the driver is sitting in the vehicle moves. And when the driver leaves the vehicle does not move, is of no use. Similarly, the body functions, acts, or is livid because of the presence of soul. So how do we recognize, how do we see the soul? People say, can you show us the soul? Well, it can be seen by the symptoms. There are many things in this world which we cannot see by our naked eyes, but we can see them by the symptoms. To describe this, we have discussed about two prominent symptoms and given an example of comparing robot versus human being and living versus non-living. So if in case we have the poll ready, I would request our admin to play out the poll just to see if we had understood this concept well or not. So what is the difference between a robot and a human being? Is it of emotions, that human beings have emotions and robot doesn't have? Is it of intelligence, that human beings have intelligence and the robot do not have? Or is it both? Or is it none of these? So modern science gives us evidence or gives us the theory of life, origin of life, based on pratyaksha praman or else anuman praman, hypothesis. We have already discussed that this is not the best way of learning or acquiring knowledge. Pratyaksha and anuman are not always wrong, but the point is they're limited. They cannot give us the absolute knowledge. So here, difference between a robot and a man is of, well, the difference is only one, at least in this, that is of emotions. Now, what I meant by intelligence, of course, one way you are correct to consider both, but what I meant by intelligence is the ability to function. The robot can also function, not in terms of decision making. So if you're thinking intelligence function is decision making, then you are correct. But nonetheless, thank you for doing this. Similarly, we had also discussed about the difference between the living and non-living to prove the point or to make a point that consciousness exists. So what is the difference between living and non-living? If we have another poll, please go ahead and publish it. So here are the options. So what do you remember about it? What makes, or what is the difference between a living entity and a non-living entity like a table or the computer or the smartphone? The sound. Hare, yes. So great. Sorry, there was a little technical glitch, so I got muted. So as I see of the answer, yes, maximum of you have got it correct, but still some of you are a little confused. Looks like it is a growth and the byproduct. There are 6 stages or the 6 changes that a living entity undergoes. That is birth, growth, maintenance, byproducts. 5th is dwindle, and 6th is death. And for a non-living, there is a manufacturing, that is birth. There is no growth, where there is maintenance. There is no byproduct, where there is dwindle, and ultimately death. So these are some of the things that we have discussed yesterday, just to give you an idea that yes, soul can be perceived by its symptom, and that is the presence of consciousness. So after describing who am I, we had also discussed about the proofs for the existence of soul. We had discussed from the logic and on the basis of science. We had just introduced the subject of science, but we'll be covering it today in detail. So to begin with, proof for soul's existence, this is what something we discussed yesterday. Based on common sense, he has passed away. We say that the person has passed away, but the dead body is still there. What nourishes life? Everyone says our life is survived by the food, the water, the air we, the food we eat, the water we drink, and the air we breathe. If that's the case, feed it to the dying man would not nourish the dying person. Similarly, we say, this is my hand, this is my body, this is my head. If this is my body, it means I have to be certainly something different than the body, something to think about. Then we are also discussed based on the introspection, just like the symptoms of the soul that we talked about. We understand things from the symptoms. We have already done this exercise. These are some of the things that we have discussed yesterday. And now we'll venture into the subject matter of science. Does science, the modern science, gives any evidence for the existence of the soul? Let's take a look. According to science or medical science, there are 2 terminology, NDE and OBE. NDE refers to near-death experience, and OBE refers to out-of-body experience. According to Medical Journal of Current Problems in Pediatrics, they say that almost 11 to 14% of patients have had out-of-body experience. As you can see in the picture, what is out-of-body experience? A person is in full body coma and he's been operated on. And when he is brought back from the coma, not the coma, I mean to say anesthesia, when he's brought out of the anesthesia, and when he wakes up, the patient describes how he was operated. Now, how is it possible if he had been applied with a whole body anesthesia? He's completely unconscious, yet he is able to describe how he was operated on. This is one example of out-of-body experience. These are medical terminology which they talk about. Second is near-death experience. Enough research has been done on the subject matter of near-death experience. Near-death experiences, person has literally died and he has gone out of his body, have experienced an extraterrestrial dimension, and then have returned back to the body to explain, to have come back into the physical realm where he has or she has been given the opportunity to explain what he or she saw, or else at least have seen something outside of the physical realm. So Dr. Michel Sabom, a cardiologist and a professor at Emory University, he says there are enough evidences available for near-death experience. And here I would like to introduce you to one very famous and prominent doctor, where this person had appeared in Oprah Winfrey show, and where she asked the doctor that you've written a very famous book on the subject matter of reincarnation. You're a doctor, you're a graduate from one of the very famous medical universities, in America. You're a top-notch and the most sought-after doctor in America, and you are an agnostic. How come you believe reincarnation exists? And then the doctor explains the incident that happened with him. He's a very famous psychologist. The incident that happened with him that forced him to believe that reincarnation happens or exists. And he explains in the video that I'm going to play in a short while that actually prior to that, intellectually, I was aware that reincarnation exists because I had read the various books on the subject matter of reincarnation written by various senior doctors in my profession. But I was not convinced, as per se convinced, only intellectually convinced. But when I personally went through the experience, then I was clear that yes, reincarnation exists. And please hear to it. Very, very enthralling story. Here it goes.
What's the moment that you were convinced that what she was saying was real and that this was something bigger than you had expected?
It was about the fourth or fifth time, and she died in one of these lifetimes in the past, floated above, replicating all of the near-death experience work. She had never heard of that or read anything. And then
Had you?
I had read,
Heard of NDEs?
yes, I had read Raymond Moody's
Raymond
book
Moody.
from the 70s. And so Life After Life.
Yes. Raymond Moody is a psychologist, author, and researcher who coined the term near-death experience in the late 70s. By interviewing people who had NDEs, he found they'd experienced many of the same things, like floating above their bodies, watching the scene below, meeting friends and relatives who previously passed, traveling through a long tunnel, feeling no pain and a sense of peace.
So I was aware of that, but in a clinical academic sense, because I didn't really experience that myself. I didn't know if I believed it, but I knew about his work. And I remember my office feeling very cold, icy cold at this moment. She said, there are two people here to see you, your father and your son. Now she's in this hypnotized state. She's in between lifetimes now, just floating there, but still in a deep state. And she didn't know anything about me. I don't even have diplomas hanging in my office. So she's telling me, your father's here and your son.
So she doesn't know that your father has passed or
No.
not passed.
No.
And this was before you could Google your doctor.
Before the internet was, before you could Google your doctor.
Yes.
Before all this, she didn't know anything about my father. She tells me my daughter is named after him. Amy was, she's here now, and she was named after him. His English name was Alvin. His Hebrew name was Avram. She didn't know this. She's a Catholic woman from New England. She said, your father is here. He died from his heart. His heart was important. Your daughter is named after him. And she went into other medical details. He died in New Jersey a year and a half before I began with Catherine, just before Amy was born. Amy was named after him. And Catherine's telling me this, the room's still feeling icy cold. And I'm thinking, what is this? How does she know this? Because he never had an obituary. It's not only before the internet. There's no place to look it up. There's no obituary. It's not written down. Our best friends didn't know these details. And then she said, your son is with him. He's here too. He's very tiny, shining brightly. And his heart is important also because it's turned around backwards. And she went into why he died. Medical details. That was the son, my first child, who died in 1971. This is happening around 1981.
This was a son who had lived 23 days.
Yes, she's telling me about him and the very rare congenital heart deformity. She's describing it and giving me other details. And that was the epiphany for me. That was the moment I knew.
Because you knew nobody knew about that. You and your wife had kept that.
We had, our relatives didn't know, our best friends didn't know. You can't look that up, you can't Google it. There's an article. And I knew then, and knowing her after a year and a half of therapy, I remember thinking, if she's right about these things about my father and my son, could it also be about past lives and reincarnation and life after death and the existence of the soul and all of us getting reunited again and again and again? And that was the moment when it just all shifted for me for good. Because before that, I was like, push, but it was intellectual still. Imagination doesn't heal and cure symptoms. But now it was personal. She knew my father, she knew my son, she's getting messages. And I asked her, where are you getting this from? And she described them. She was listening, responding to spiritual beings. She called them masters.
Spiritual beings.
Master spirits who were there telling her these
Interesting.
things. And then I knew,
Dr.
wow,
Brian
my
is
whole
talking about spiritual beings.
universal order, my whole world was upside down, because now I'm learning about dimensions in heaven and master spirits and angels and steps on the way to God. And I realized,
Hare Krishna. So, quite a fascinating interview. We saw one of such real life story yesterday, and today we have another example of it. A very famous and noted doctor, Dr. Brian, narrating his own story of how he actually communicated, or else to say, one of his patients who he was treating and had have taken her into a state of meditation, hypnotism, precisely to say, she could communicate with him the message of his father, Dr. Brian's father, and Brian's son, both have already died. And that's how this man came to believe that actually, yes, that's true, because nobody else knows the details of the death of my father and the son. This is just one of very, very rare, one of very few examples. There are many, many examples like this which are there. And these are not some religious people. They're all doctors, scientists. And for them to believe in the subject of reincarnation have taken a personal experience. Well, there are many people who have gone through personal experience till they don't accept it. But here we have somebody at least having enough intelligence to accept the soul exists. So here, this man, Dr. Brian, has only as much as knowledge, as much as he has got an experience of it. But for you and I and all of us, we already have complete knowledge about the existence of soul, what is this life, and everything given in the scriptures known as Bhagavad Gita. Once again, I would like to raise a question. How come a text like Bhagavad Gita found in Mahabharata, which was written 3,500 years ago, according to the knowledges, can still be a mythology if it talks about the science which is gradually being accepted by the modern scientists also? Something for you to think about. So let's build up on this case more and let's proceed ahead. Before we go ahead, I'll give you one short story. Another story of this near-death experience is a story from San Diego. There was a person by the name of Mr. Prakash who would visit our temple in San Diego on a weekly basis, on a weekend program, on Sunday afternoon program known as Love Feast. His wife was more religious minded, whereas the man was more like agnostic. He would only come to pick his wife and also to have a Sunday feast, Prashadam Savdar, which was a delicious feast. So like that, he kept on coming to pick up his wife and would often come and take Prashadam at the temple. After few months of their association with the temple, one day, the wife of Mr. Prakash called up the temple president, and she was very frantic. She was very nervous. She said, do it. And then next day, when temple president went to meet Mr. Prakash in the hospital, the doctor told him that Mr. Prakash have entered into the state of coma. And like that, he stayed in the state of coma for almost a month. And the wife of Mr. Prakash requested our temple president at San Diego temple that please visit him, at least if possible, once in a week. Please read out Bhagavad Gita to him, chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra to him, so that at least, if not the body, the spirit could hear the sound and maybe he can get transformed. Fast forward a month later. Once again, the wife of Mr. Prakash called up the temple president. Temple president, you have to immediately run to the temple, run to the hospital. You have to please come fast. And temple president said, what happened? My husband has come out of the state of coma. The temple president said, well, congratulations. That's all right. But he wants to only meet you. He doesn't want to speak to anyone. And he's saying, please call Badrinarayan Prabhu, the temple president of San Diego temple. Please come fast. So Badrinarayan Prabhu, temple president of San Diego, he thought, okay. He rushed to the temple, went to the ward where the patient was there, went right in front of Mr. Prakash. Mr. Prakash was half lying on the bed. As soon as he saw Badrinath Prabhu, he literally sat up and he caught hold of Badrinath Prabhu's hand and he said, Prabhu, Prabhu, they came 4 times. So everyone was shocked. This is the first thing he spoke for the first time since he came out of coma. 4 times they came. And the family members thought, okay, probably Mr. Prakash is talking about us. The wife said, no, it's not about 4 times. We never left you. We were all there all through the month with you. So the husband said, no, 4 times, Badri Prabhu, 4 times they came. And this time the nurse said, oh yes, probably he's talking about us because we saved him 4 times. He was literally on the brink of death. He said, no, Badri, 4 times they came. And by this time, Badrinath Prabhu was getting a sense of what was going on. And he said, were the Vishnu Dutas, the good looking, the beautiful form, did they came? This man said, no. 3 very ugly, crooked looking, monster like face and body. 3 people came 3 times they came. When they came for the first time and they said, we are about to take you away from the body. I said, no, I'm totally dependent on Krishna. This is the glory of Krishna Prasadam. Just because he consumed Krishna Prasadam. He said, I'm totally dependent on Krishna. As soon as I said, I'm dependent on Krishna, they went away. They came the second time. Again, I said, do whatever you want to do with me. I'm fully dependent on Lord Shri Krishna. Again, they went away. And the third time they came and they said, this time we're going to drag you. Again, I raised my hands and I chanted the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. As soon as they heard the Mahamantra, they disappeared. And now they came the 4th time. But this time, not the ugly, the monster looking like, but this time, very, very beautiful form. And Badrinath Prabhu understood, oh, these must be Vishnu Dutas. Yes, they came the 4th time. They came, they blessed me, they smiled at me, and they blessed me, and they disappeared. As soon as they disappeared, I came out of the state of coma. Badri Prabhu, I don't want to go back home. Please take me to the temple. I want to serve in the temple wholeheartedly now. And this is almost 10 years ago when this incident happened. Mr. Prakash became very, very dedicated person, a spiritualist, and had been rendering various services. Right now, he's serving as a pujari in the temple. Can you imagine a person who had nothing to do with the deities of the program? Now he's serving the deities and become pujari of the deities. And just because you went through an experience, just to give you an example. Now, I quoted this example intentionally after quoting the story of Dr. Bryan, because if I would have told you before, you would have thought, oh, this is some hypothetical story. Well, Dr. Bryan just quoted, a scientist said that he had an experience of reincarnation. So I'm just sharing another real life story. So let's move forward. Science, let's take a look into that. Reincarnation research. So what? In reincarnation research, now we're going to talk about some past life memories. The person on the screen is Dr. Ian Stevenson. He's no more now, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Virginia, had researched hundreds and thousands of cases and have documented and finalized, or you can say certified 3,000 cases of reincarnation, saying that yes, these are genuine cases of reincarnation. Along with that, we have another person, Dr. Satwant from India itself. She is from National Institute of Mental Health and Neuroscience. And she have also documented and certified many, many cases of reincarnation. I'd like to quote one story or one case study documented by Dr. Ian Stevenson from India. And it's the story of Shukla Gupta. When she was born, when she was 1.5 years old, she would cuddle the pillow saying that this is my Meenu. And the parents would thought, okay, maybe she's a female and female have attraction to soft toys or something like that. But as she became a 5-year-old boy, a 5-year-old girl, she would not leave the pillow. She would care for the pillow. She would bring the food for the pillow, saying that this pillow is my Meenu. And the parents got worried. And when they inquired from her, she narrated about her past life, that how in her past life, her name was Mana. And her husband's name was so-and-so. And she had a daughter by the name of Meenu. She lived in so-and-so village. The father of Shukla Gupta really got intrigued and he decided, why don't we figure it out if it is factual or not? And they decided to visit that village which Shukla Gupta was talking about. She's just 5-year-old and she's been brought to a village by a train. As soon as she got down on the platform, it's a small, simple village with no road signs. And this 5-year-old girl led and she took everyone through the different narrow passages of the village right onto the doorstep of the house which Shukla Gupta identified as to be the house of Mana, her previous lifetime. She knocked on the door. As soon as she entered inside, she saw her whole family member from the past life there. She could recognize her husband, her in-laws, the relatives and in-laws and everything, and everyone was shocked. And this is a story which has been documented and certified by Dr. Ian Stevenson. So she could identify her previous lifetime house, members, their nicknames, and so forth. Another story, we had actually shown a video about it yesterday of Chase Bowman, and we had shared the video of it today also on the WhatsApp group because yesterday we couldn't play it completely. And this 5-year-old boy had a past life memory where he could identify himself as Mr. Chase, and he was a pilot flying a fighter jet, and his fighter jet had crashed and he died in that accident. And these are some of his paintings that he would draw. You can imagine being a parent of such a child, you'll be terrified and petrified. What's going on? Why somebody is drawing about war zone? A 5-year-old boy has such a fantastic knowledge about different parts of a fighter jet and whatnot. And of course, we discussed that yesterday, another case study, a factual case study. So now you cannot say, which unfortunately some people say, well, we are chemicals at the end of the day, but for some people, somehow some chemical composition is such a way that chemicals are reformed or recombined after their death, and they have some past life memories. No, fact is, we all have had reincarnation, but some of us remember and most of us don't remember. Now it raises a question, why we don't remember? And more important that we don't remember is it really important for us to remember? Or is it a blessing that we don't remember? I leave that for you to think about. Is it a blessing for us not to remember our past life? Or do you think we are missing out something by not remembering our past life? How many of you, when you look back into your past, have a regret? Oh, I wish I would not have done that blunder. Yes or no? If you think when you look back at your past, sometimes you have the sense of regret. Think about if you would knew about your previous lifetimes, how much your mind and heart would have been filled up with regret, knowing that were all mistakes you did in the past life. So Dr. Ian Stevenson says phobia. Phobia means fear, also comes from past life. Something called as claustrophobia, fear of a closed space. There is a fear of height, fear of water. How many of you have fear from height? If you go on top of a mountain, when you look down the valley, you feel like, oh, you feel frightened. How many of you have fear of water? Just to put your head inside the water, you feel like as if you're drowning, you're about to die. So different people have different kind of fear. An interesting thing Dr. Ian Stevenson says that not necessarily we have had an incident in this lifetime because of which we have become fearful. Not necessarily. If not, why are we fearful of certain things? If I have not had any incident of falling from a height, then why am I afraid of heights? If somebody had not had any incident of drowning, then why is the person afraid of water? Dr. Ian Stevenson concludes this is because in one of their past lives, the person must have died either by falling from a height or by drowning into a river or an ocean. And that's the reason Dr. Ian Stevenson says phobias are from past life. Not only this, difference in the temperament of the twins. Now, if you know how the twins are born, it's a single cell made of the same genetic code. And that gets split into two. And if that gets split into more, to that many child, the mother's womb would carry. Now, single cell of the same genetic code getting split into two, how can you have two people born with the different temperaments, different likings and disliking, if the chemical composition and the genetic code is same? For example, if you have a production line of Maruti 800, what do you expect, Maruti 800? Or do you expect Honda City to come out once in a while? By default, Maruti 800 will already come. because that is what is your processing line is of. Not that accidentally sometime you'll have a Mercedes Benz or Honda City, etc. No. Then Dr. Ian Stevenson raises the question, but twins are never alike, except for their physical appearance. And again, it establishes that there is a presence of something else beyond this body that makes them different. Other thing, Dr. Ian Stevenson's talk about unacquired and uninherited skills. Many, many examples are there. There's an example of a girl from Sri Lanka born into a very affluent family, and she, at the age of 5, could take a bamboo stick, whatever they call it, thatch for building up a roof. She knew how to join them together and build a thatched roof. Now that's a very high-end skill. You need to be trained. And this small girl born into an affluent family, nobody actually had a thatched roof, but she could build a thatched roof. Just one simple example of how does this child have this uninherited, unacquired skill? Dr. Ian Stevenson says is all because of past life. Yet he does not have the complete understanding still. What does Bhagavad Gita tells? We'll see that ahead. And when we understand the wisdom of Bhagavad Gita, then we will know why people have past life memories, why there's a difference in temperaments of twins, why there is the memory of the skills from the past life. That Bhagavad Gita answers that we'll take a look in a short while. So in essence, there are hundreds and hundreds of books talking about reincarnation. If you have time, you can go through of it all. But if not, if you think you're the one who says have no time, I would request you to please come and join us for Bhagavad Gita classes, or take a copy of Bhagavad Gita and read for yourself. Bhagavad Gita speaks the science, the real science. And if you understand it, you'll know far much more what the science knows of today about the life and about the purpose of this human form of life. To sum up our discussion on the proof of source existence, on the basis of science, we saw documented and verified cases of reincarnation. We saw how Ian Stevenson says phobia, difference in temperament, unacquired, uninherited skills, they all are but indications of past life. So far, we have done through logic, through science. Let's go through scripture. What does scripture says about our existence? Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna, you are eternal. We have already quoted this verse yesterday. Vasham sichinani yatha vihaya navani grahanati naro parani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi. Just like when the clothes become old, you throw it away. Similarly, when the body grows old, the body is discarded, and the living entity, which means the soul, accepts another body. Not only this, Najayate mriyete va kadachan nayam bhutva vavitva nabhuya. Hey Arjuna, you never come into existence. There was no past, present, future for you because you are eternal. Najayate mriyete va. Neither you take birth nor you die at any point of time. Ajo nitya shashvato yam purana. You are unborn, you are eternal. Then who dies? Nahanyate hanyamane sharire. You do not die. What dies is hanyamane sharire, is the body that dies. You are a spirit soul. Who am I? Krishna says, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tata dehantara prapter dhiras tatra namuyati. It is a soul which passes through the different age groups. The young body, the newborn body, the teenage body, the middle-aged body, the old body, and finally the death. The bodies are constantly changing, but what is remaining consistent behind the change, constant change, is the spirit soul. If in case you have a copy of Bhagavad Gita translated by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, please note down the homework verses where you can read about the science of soul more. Is in chapter number 2, verse number 11 to verse number 29 or 30 precisely. So far we have covered the following subject. Who am I? The proof for soul existence. Now we're going to talk about the gross and subtle coverings of the body. Science recognizes at this point of time our two existence. One, the physical level, which is gross, and second is subtle level. However, Bhagavad Gita and Vedic scriptures identifies our existence at three levels. So let's take a look what it is. That's the third point of our presentation. Krishna says, we have a gross body and a subtle body, as described in this verse. Bhumirapo nalo vayo khammano buddharevacha ahankara ityam me bhinna prakriti ashtadha, which means 8. Bhumir, apo, nalo, vayu, kham, man, buddhir, ahankara. Earth, water, fire, air, ether are the 5 gross elements. And the 3 subtle elements are mind, intelligence, and false ego. And Krishna says, Arjuna, these all are my energies. So if you see, Dr. Monson was actually correct. But before we go on to the, Dr. Monson was to be here. Okay, fine. So we'll come to Dr. Monson in a while. So according to Bhagavad Gita, there are 3 types of bodies. First is the gross body that we see, made up of earth, water, fire, ether. Second is a subtle body, mind, intelligence, false ego. And third is the soul, spiritual soul, which is Sat Chit Ananda. Let's take a look at the gross body. We'll talk about each one of it. So how many of you agree our body is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether? Say yes or no. Wherever you are, whichever platform, you can reply. Or if you're unsure, you can say maybe, maybe not. What's the response of our audience? So,
One response, yes.
So if you look at the body, when a body is burnt, what remains behind is an ash. That is what? Nothing but earth. This is all skin is nothing but earth. Water, I believe more than 70% of body is covered by water. Air, you're breathing in, breathing out. Fire, we are a walking microwave with 98 degree plus Fahrenheit. And ether refers to the space between intercellular space. Space between the cells is called as ether. So we are made up of these 5 gross elements. And Dr. Harry Monson was indeed correct when he said this is the chemical composition, but he has only identified that of the gross body, not of the subtle body. So scientists do not know much about subtle body, but Bhagavad Gita teaches us there is a subtle body which is made up of mind, intelligence, and soul. And higher than this subtle body is Atma, which is Sat, which means eternity, Chit means knowledge, Ananda means bliss. How many of you here wants Ananda, bliss in your life? Unending, uninterrupted. Please say yes or no. Okay. How many of you are always seeking after or curious to gain more and more knowledge? What knowledge means? Are always curious about what's happening in the world, what's happening in the lives of others, what's the news, what is the status update, what is they call it? WhatsApp status? What's the WhatsApp status? Status, right?
Yes, yes.
Or the Facebook status? If yes, say yes. And how many of you would prefer to have a life of eternity? Maybe your current situation may not give you that indication, but in general, people do not want to die. So that's because the nature of the soul. Think about it. Matter does not give birth to matter. We have a laptop in front of me. There's a table in front of me. Now, from where did this matter came? The matter does not give birth to matter. This laptop belonging to, let's say, Microsoft company is being created by somebody there. You're staying in an apartment, which is the matter, has been created by some living entity, which means a human being. And that human being is driven by a soul. It is the soul that gives shape to a matter. Matter can never give shape to another matter. And that's the point about it. So it is a soul that gives form to the matter. So Bhagavad Gita says, Shastra says, soul is covered by 3 levels, or it's covered by the gross and subtle elements of covering, and the 3 levels of our existence: gross, subtle, and within it is the soul. So with this, we come to the conclusion of our key points. We had discussed about who am I, the proof of soul existence, and the third point was gross and subtle coverings. Now we come to the final part of our presentation, that is frequently asked questions on the subject matter of soul. I believe some of you may have these questions, so we have compiled it. We'll walk you through with it, and in case if you have questions beyond it, we'll definitely discuss that. But however, before we start the questions here, I would like to give you or play out a small video by Dr. Eben Alexander. He's been interviewed by Larry King, one very famous host, on the subject matter of reincarnation and why Dr. Eben believes in reincarnation and what is his understanding about it. Please watch it. Another very prominent personality talking about it. Hare Krishna. My computer is a little acting strange, but it will play. It should play. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, if that's the case, it's all right. I'll play it out right from my laptop. Just give me a quick second, please.
Nation, how come there are so many more people on the planet now than were on the planet 100 years ago?
Turns out that each and every one of us has a lifeline that can go.
You believe?
So Larry King is asking a question on the subject matter of reincarnation, and particularly why there's an overpopulation. Why we have more people now than before? That's the first question. So it's like an FAQ which is going on between Larry King and the Dr. app. Please hear it.
Reincarnation, how come there are so many more people on the planet now
Volume.
than were on the planet 100 years ago?
Turns out that each and every one of us has a lifeline that can go into multiple different incarnations. We often reincarnate with various soul groups, but there's also a programmed forgetting, so that even though children can often have past life memories, they disappear by about age 6. It's a physiologic process.
Why don't we have them? Why can't I know my past?
Well, I think part of it is that we are here to learn lessons that at this stage of the game for humanity are best learned if we basically see ourselves as physical beings with one incarnation. It gives us skin in the game, the emotional power of engagement, the loves, the losses, every bit of it. We need to be engaged with that. But of course, in meditation, you can learn to separate and come to see that the magic of your consciousness is not that little voice in your head. That's the annoying roommate. Your consciousness is the awareness, and you can develop a much richer awareness. That's a part of you that expands when it's liberated from the brain at the time of physical death.
I ask all the time, what does it all mean? I'm very literal. I don't believe we go anywhere. I'm not religious. I don't think there's a place upstairs where. I don't think anyone's judging me. I just don't buy it all. I think religion is fine for those who have it. I think it's comforting. But I can't expand myself. I can't do it. You'd say death is temporary and that I'm going somewhere. Why am I wrong?
Well, actually, the reason the universe exists, from my standpoint, is what we're doing right here now. We're living these lives. The point that I try and make is that we can live these lives better when we realize that we're more than just one little physical incarnation, birth to death.
So what I believe doesn't matter. It's going.
What you believe matters a lot. This universe is, if nothing else, it is just. This is about learning. It's about love and connection. We're all really sharing the one mind. That's what near-death experiencers come back realizing. No matter what your background, The near-death experience, in most cases, brings back this incredible sense of love and meaning of purpose and connectedness. It's all about relationships. We're all in this together. And it's not just about humans, it's about all life on earth. But I'd say fundamentally, it's about learning. And that the true answer to all the world's dark problems is to recover love for ourselves, because each and every one of us is a divine connection to the creative source of the universe, but also we're all in it together. So it really is about a return to some principles that I would say emerged from the prophets of all the great faiths, showing compassion, kindness, forgiveness, mercy. We're really here to take care of each other.
You say death is temporary.
I would say it's like breathing. You breathe in here, breathe out in death, and then breathe in again for another incarnation. It's an oscillation, but it's a progression. It's not like in some other traditions, there's this kind of wheel of suffering, and that reincarnation is a wheel that you escape. I would say that's not true at all. This is about growth. We're here to learn and grow. The hardships in life are actually gifts. They are things that give us the challenges, and it's by recovering love for self and love for others, manifesting that in all the choice of our life, that enables that soul growth. That we
Hare Krishna. So you just heard him, and I mean, it's a very fantastic speech which is given by doctor here. Let me just start my presentation. Please give me a quick second. And I have a quick question for all of you based on it. All right. So I hope my presentation is back. Okay, it will be coming. So anyways, but by the time this somehow computer is working slow. Nonetheless, did you notice something particular about the speech of this doctor? I mean, I would say it was really humble, had a great sense of understanding of the subject matter of soul, but yet for some of the questions, he said he doesn't have a clear understanding, and it is his belief. Again, that was hypothesis that he made. Of course, he had an understanding that we all are connected with each other. We are like brother and sister. When the people have an understanding of our, this existence of life beyond this body, then they tend to become more loving to each and every living entity. But ultimately, we are part of that supreme consciousness. So like that, the doctor was able to come to certain conclusion. So he is able to come a little close to the actual science, the real science, the spiritual science, but yet he doesn't have the thorough understanding or the complete understanding. So where can we learn about it? Once again, that is what Bhagavad Gita, the Shabda Pramana, gives us. So with this Anuman and Pratyaksha Praman, the doctor was able to come little by close by, but yet he had many questions for himself to answer on the subject matter of soul. All of us born and brought up in India, we have so easily available, or I would say the spiritual knowledge is so easily accessible to all of us that we tend to forget it. We tend to ignore it. But at least look at the claims given by the best and top-notch doctors. I hope and I believe all of you would definitely pay more attention to the subject matter of soul now, and your faith would have increased on the science or on the text of Bhagavad Gita. Let's resume our discussion again, talking about FAQs. So very first question, what happens to us at death? So we have already discussed what happens at death. Krishna explains at the time of death, it's just like giving up your old clothes. So at the time of death, you give up your old body and accept a new body. And in 15th chapter, Krishna explains what happens when you have gone through change of body. Shrotram chakshu sparshanam cha. Shrotram, ears. Chakshu, eyes. Sparshana means sense of touch. Rasanam grahanam evacha. Rasana means the tongue. Grahanam refers to the sense of smell. Rasanam grahanam evacha. Adhisthaya manaschayam, along with the mind. Vishayan upasevate. So a person gets another body where he gets a new set of eyes, ears, nose, tongue, sense of touch, accompanied along with the mind. And that is what happens after death. he is awarded another body. So, in essence, what happens after death is an ongoing process, eternal process of change of bodies. A living entity, which means Jivatma or the soul, keeps on changing his or her body life after life, from one body to another body. And we have 8.4 million species. Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita, birth, death, old age, and disease are a very, very miserable experience. Hey Arjuna, you are not supposed to undergo these experiences. You are an eternal part and parcel of mine, and you deserve to be in a place called a spiritual world, which is beyond dukkha of this birth, death, old age, and disease, and of the three kleshas. Human body is a junction which gives an opportunity for us to make a choice, to decide our destiny. And it begins with now, by accepting the wisdom of scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and applying the teachings of it in our life to set ourselves free from the bondage of physical parameters like that of a body. And that's an example here, what happens after that. Let's proceed ahead to the second FAQ. Is the soul in every body the same soul? No. Lord Shri Krishna speaks about it in second chapter, verse number 12. Krishna says, Natu evaham jatu nasham natum neme janadipah na chaiva na bhavishyama sarve vayam matha param. Never there was a time when I did not or you did not exist, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. In other words, we are eternal living beings. We have always been existing and we always will continue to exist. We are unique and individual spirit souls. Third question, does the soul have a form? It is a soul that gives form to the matter. Otherwise, matter is formless. Yes, soul does have a form and it is a spiritual form. Next question, what is the size of the soul? Scriptures explain the size of the soul is 1 by 10,000 of the tip of the hair. Sorry, I don't have a sample to show you of the hair, but I hope you understood the graphic. So 1 by 10,000 of the tip of the hair is said to be the size of the soul. Idea is, it's a kind of a metaphor to help you understand that soul is spiritual. We cannot see by our naked eyes. Even if you are able to create a kind of a microscope which can go up to this measurement, still you'll not be able to see the soul because it is spiritual. The means to see it is not through a naked eyes, but there is a separate procedure for it. So that brings us to the fifth question. Can I really see the soul, or how can I see the soul? For it, let us ask this way. Can you see oil in the oil seeds? Yes or no? Please be quick in responding to these questions. Can you see ghee in the milk? Yes or no? Can you see sugar in the sugar cane? Yes or no? What's the answer? Yes, you can see it. And to see it, there is a procedure. Through a procedure, you can see it, not with this naked eyes. So one way, yes, you are correct. But if you follow a procedure, you can extract sugar from sugar cane, ghee from milk, and oil from the oil seeds. Different branches of science have different apparatus for research, like physics, biology, chemistry, etc. Similarly, for spiritual science, there is a certain set of apparatus. So let's compare the material science with the spiritual science in terms of, for performing any experiment, what all we need. We need to aim, the goal, the apparatus, the theory, the procedure, and observation, and ultimately conclusion. In case of spiritual science, what is the aim? To see the soul. What is the apparatus? Spiritual apparatus. Theory, study of the scriptures. What is the procedure? Is to apply what we have studied in the scriptures. And in essence, the gist of scriptures is to chant mantra meditation, which we'll be speaking in the future session, and observation. Once we go through this practice of procedure, that is mantra meditation, by the practice or by the application of this procedure, then the person is able to experience the presence of soul, and then gradually, with time, the person can see the soul. And conclusion, once you've gone through this theory, experiment, and conclusion, or the result, then you come to an understanding, yes, soul is there. So the axiomatic truth in spirituality can be proven, like the existence of soul, but not the axiomatic truths of mathematics or of the modern science, like point being a non-dimensional entity or imaginary number. They cannot be proven. That's the reason it's called imaginary. Next question. Question number 6. On what basis the soul is awarded the next body? We find the answer to this question in Bhagavad Gita itself. Chapter number 8, verse number 6, Krishna says, Yam yamapi smaram bhavam tayatiyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of mind or whatever state of being, you can say, or whatever one remembers at the time of quitting the body is what is that's what determines his next destination. For example, if somebody while quitting the body remembers his puppy, you call it Tommy, Tinku, Pinku, whatever you want to call it, for sure, according to Bhagavad Gita, you're being born as a sibling of that puppy, or maybe you're born as a child to that puppy. Means next body as dog is for sure. In case if you remembered while dying, you remember a dog. So how do our next body is determined? By the thought at the time of we quitting a body. And what thought we'll have at the time of quitting the body is the thought or is the thing with which we are most attached. So we cannot change our consciousness at the final moment. Therefore, we need to begin the practice from now so that we develop attachment for the right thing. So that when we remember that, we go up, not degrade down. Which means while quitting the body, if you remember Lord Shri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna says, you come back to me. Antakale chamameva smaran muktva kalevaram. Question number 7. What is the difference in the body and the spiritual? Body is a matter, whereas soul is spirit or spiritual. Body is not conscious, it's a dead matter, whereas soul is conscious. Body undergoes changes, but Krishna explains, soul never undergoes changes. Body is temporary, keeps on changing, but soul is eternal. Finally, body takes birth, body dies, and Krishna says, no, soul is always as it is, can never be killed by any weapon, by anything. And with this, we come to the conclusion of our topic, the greatest lie ever spoken. To conclude with, despite so much evidence or proof, to consider ourselves a mere machine is unscientific and condemnable, as we are restricting one's growth on the spiritual path. Today, everyone is health conscious, but these efforts are usually focused only on the physical well-being. We rarely focus enough on our emotional or mental health or well-being. And the one thing which is totally disregarded or ignored is the spiritual well-being. To conclude, nourishing our soul is arguably the most important agenda. We ought to be attending it today. The more we attend to it, the more our life becomes auspicious and blissful. And the nature of the spiritual happiness is such that it extends outward. But naturally, once your life becomes auspicious, by your presence, the life of everyone around will also become auspicious. To sum up, you're not the body that you see in the mirror. You're Atma, the real driver of the bodily car. To summarize, in this session, we have discussed who am I? Am I the bundle of chemicals, as the doctors or the science says, or am I the soul, as described in Bhagavad Gita? What are the proofs of soul existence? Is there any proof that what Bhagavad Gita teaches us, the scriptures tells us that we are the soul? We saw proof on the basis of logic, on the basis of introspection, as well as on the basis of science, near-death experience, out-of-body experience, reincarnation case studies, as well as what Vedic scriptures like Bhagavad Gita speaks. Then the third subject matter was gross and subtle coverings. According to Bhagavad Gita, we exist at 3 levels: the gross body, the subtle body comprising mind, intelligence, false ego, and then finally the spirit soul. And in the end, we had discussed few FAQs, such as what happens after death. We accept new body. Okay, some random animation. Second, is a soul in every body the same soul? No. Does the soul have a form? Yes. What is the size of the soul? 1 by 10,000 of the tip of the hair. How can I see the soul? By a procedure, spiritual procedure. How does one acquire a new body? Yamam vapi smaran bhavam, whatever you remember at the time of putting the body. And body was a soul, body is temporary, body is made up of matter, body is material, whereas spirit is spiritual, conscious, eternal, always alive. Like that, we discussed some of these FAQs. With that, we come to the conclusion of our today's topic. I just realized we went 5 minutes overboard. Sorry for that. And tomorrow we'll continue our discussion on the fourth topic now. And the fourth topic is, who is our real friend? With that, we thank you all for joining us for today evening for the session of the third topic of this deal with COVID crisis. And at this point in time, I will pause. If there are any questions or comments, anything, we can request our host to interact with the audience. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. So we have a question from Mr. Sudhanshu Kumar. So would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, please.
Who make new soul? Who make new soul?
Sorry, say that again.
Who make new soul? New soul.
Who makes new soul?
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Mamai Vamso Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. I am, or in other words, all the living entities are my eternal part and parcel. And again, Krishna also says, Aham Bija Pradaha Pitaha. I am the seed-giving father. Krishna, the cause of all causes, the supreme absolute truth, or you can say the supreme consciousness, who scripture defined as by the name of Krishna, is our supreme father. And by him, the creation of this whole spiritual world, material world, and of all living entities have happened. Hare Krishna.
Maithili Rani Mataji, you can...
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam.
Done words.
Prabhuji.
Yes, please go ahead.
Prabhuji, is my question. We cannot see the soul, then how some people experience a near-death experience?
नियर डेथ एक्सपीरियंस का मतलब यह नहीं कि आप आत्मा देख रहे हैं। नियर डेथ एक्सपीरियंस का मतलब है आपने अपने शरीर के बाहर जाकर you have accessed another realm, you know, it's a different level of existence जहाँ पे आपको जाकर it's like you have gotten access to the realm of spirits, जहाँ आप जाके उन spirits से बात कर सकते हैं, and where the person have come out of the body, and then again he has returned back into the body to explain what all happened when he left the body. So यहाँ पे see, we are soul. So it's not that we have to see the soul. We have to realize we are the soul जब हम शरीर के अंदर हैं. जब आपने शरीर त्याग ही दिया, it's like a driver leaving the vehicle. जब ड्राइवर व्हीकल को छोड़ के चला ही गया, तो देखने का बचा ही क्या है? That's the point. So near death experience का मतलब है, it's a medical evidence which says that we are different than the body. That's the point here. All right.
Yes. Dhanyavad.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. There's a question from YouTube from Mr. Ritesh Kondekar. He's asking, as you explained that soul departs and may take the next birth, but very often the recently deceased people are seen in the dreams of those close to them. Is it real soul to soul connect in the dreams?
Hare Krishna. Well, it's difficult to say what exactly is happening, but let me put it this way. Ghost, who there are 8 variety of ghosts: Bhoot, Pret, Vishash, Betal, and so forth. First of all, they exist. They are for real. So when, I will not go too much in detail of the subject matter, but in the context of the question right now, if the final rites are not performed properly for the deceased person, because the soul, when the soul leaves the body, soul leaves the body along with the subtle body. Subtle body accompanies the soul and goes to the another body. That's the reason people sometimes have a memory about their past life, because the mind from the previous body is accompanying in the new body. So because now the soul who wants to enjoy away from the Lord, for the soul to enjoy requires a vehicle, a body, and the vehicle has been taken away, which the soul under the influence of the subtle body doesn't want to give up. So if the final rites are not performed properly, then what happens? The soul remains attached to the body. And because of which that living entity becomes a ghost. And when that living entity becomes a ghost, that living entity may appear in your dream to talk to you, to speak to you. And similarly, sometimes these the subtle bodies or the spirits without the gross body, sometimes they become a little violent. Sometimes they behave in a way to cause harm to the relatives. And there are many, many stories. I mean, I don't know if you're interested to know about ghost stories. I can tell you some ghost stories, but there are hundreds of stories, some of my own personal experiences also about it. But these are factual things. So final rites, if not performed properly, then some of these things can happen. When final rites are performed properly, then the soul is taken away and is given a new set of body. That's the whole thing. All right.
Thank you, Prabhuji. There's a question by Ms. Karvi Sharma. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
If we have somebody from Zoom, I would request if they can switch on their camera. In general, if all can switch on the camera, and particularly the one who's asking a question, if they switch on the camera, it will help me to know at least to who I'm speaking to. All right. So yes, Karvi ji, I don't know if that's the name of a male or female. So sorry for that. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Karvi Sharma, are you able to unmute yourself? Hare Krishna.
All right, we can go to the next one till the time maybe there's some issue with the sound.
Okay, I can see SNGRB30, Ruhi Kavarnasi. Can you unmute yourself and ask the question?
So yeah, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Actually, I have a small doubt. Like we normally have our own family deities, like Lord Shiva or some other deities. So how can we compare them with Lord Krishna? And now, after listening to a lot of ISKCON speeches and all, now if we wish to have a belief in Krishna also, sometimes I feel that are we changing our mind in a regular interval, or are we doing in a right path or a wrong path?
So what's your name, mother? Ruhika.
My daughter's name is Ruhika. My name is Sushma.
Sushma. So Sushma ji, just kal se jo hum subject matter shuru karenge, who is our real friend, will take your question again in that subject matter. So please do ask this question to me either tomorrow or day after tomorrow. तो इसी subject matter के बारे में हम अगले topic में discussion करेंगे. So we'll take that question at that point of time. All right?
Okay, Prabhuji. And can I have a small submission to you?
Yes, please.
Like our daughters have or already having their summer vacation. Do we have any classes or anything for children in morning?
So we are about to start an international competition, painting and various things. And we also have kids program which is going on. How old is your daughter?
My elder one is 13 years old. Younger one is 12 years old.
Yes. So I guess they are old enough to attend these sessions also.
Yeah.
But still for them, the kids program is gonna resume. Actually, we were doing it already, but because sudden lockdown, things got a little difficult. We'll be resuming it, starting it maybe in a week or two. You'll get to know about it on the group. All right.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
कहाँ से
Prabhuji.
हैं आप, सुषमा जी?
I'm from Andhra, Guntur.
Oh, Guntur. Okay. Thank you, Sushma ji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Before we proceed with the question answer session, I'd just like to inform that we are opening up the WhatsApp group at the end of the session, and it will be open till about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we request everyone to give in your feedback, suggestions, so that we could incorporate that in our future sessions. So the next question is from Mr. Gautam Krishi. He says, please advise me, last 2 months, I follow ISKCON rules like 2 mala chanting, no onion, garlic, masoor, urad dal. I realized benefits also, but still I don't leave chewing of tobacco. Please give me tips.
So certain addictions, as what you're talking about of a tobacco, it takes a little more courage and determination to give up. So I would urge you, please continue doing the good practice that you have taken. Along with that good practice, please try to take as much as possible the good association, be around the devotees, and try to increase your intake of spiritual content in terms of increase your meditation, also the hearing and the reading. Along with that, very important is to keep away from the bad association. Anything that triggers, that reminds you of tobacco, maybe the ad in TV, or maybe a film star who inspired you to start eating tobacco. Generally, people take up to all these bad habits owing to their influence by the film stars, or anything else of that reason that triggers, that reminds you of tobacco. Or even the people, the bad association, and those association who you got the habit, you have to keep a distance, at least at this point of time, unless you have developed the strength enough to say no. So if you take to the good association, increase your spiritual intake, and keep the bad association away, then in a very short span of time, you will get a strength to say no to it. Not only say no to it, also to understand the ill effects of it. I know you know it in theory, but to understand means to realize that, yes, if I do it, it's suicidal. And once you have practiced it for a while, then even the bad association would not affect you, owing to the fact if you continue keeping the good association. All right, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Mr. Sudhir Billare has a question. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Sudhir ji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, yes.
Doing last rite, is that so important because of
yes,
COVID?
yes.
Many people have not got their last rite; they have just passed away. So, do you, according to what you said, all of them will go to become ghost?
Well, it is very important, according to Vedic scripture. Fire and water both are purifying agent. So, we remove the bodily contamination by taking bath. Similarly, the impurities, fire is used for treating impurities in the elements. Like gold is, churned out by a lot of heat, whatever you call it that way. So to remove the attachment of the soul with the gross body, therefore, is very important to burn the body. And after burning the body, to put the ashes into the sacred river like Ganges, Jamuna, etc. So that should be done. I'm not really sure how the final rites are indicating to, because in India, generally, all the dead bodies would be burnt, except for belonging to Abrahamic religion, where they generally bury the body. So if you're talking about Hindus, even if they are facing unfortunate, if they're dying because of this pandemic, even their final rites would still be performed in a matter of burning the body. I'm not talking about maybe they may not have a pandit doing some puja part. That anyways is not done at the time of cremation. That is done after that. So that actually is happening already, isn't it? All right, Sudeji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. There's a question from YouTube. This is from Dr. Anju Bala. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, yesterday you explained that we are more than the body. We should nourish our soul. Totally agree. But enlighten us that we should not take care or pamper our body, which is our fourth wife.
See, the reason I did not speak about it because we are so conditioned to take care of the fourth wife that you will nonetheless do it. So why to speak about it, which you're anyways going to do it, isn't it? That's the reason I did not emphasize. Even if I say don't take care of your fourth wife, which means the body, it would not make a difference because still you're going to eat, still you're going to sleep, you're still going to do the needful thing. So in terms of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, yes, we should take care of the body, but in a regulated manner. And if you take care of the body in the regulated manner, regulated sleep, regulated eating, and so forth, then you will remain healthy. All right, Dr. Anju?
Thank you, Prabhuji. So we have a question in Zoom, Dr. Sarita Sharma. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Dr. Sarita, where are you from?
I am from Pune, Dighi.
Oh, okay. Pune only. Yes.
Prabhuji, what is the basis of reaching to Vaikuntha? वैकुंठ पहुंचने का क्या मिनिमम रिक्वायरमेंट क्या है, मतलब क्या करें हम जिससे कि
वैष्णव सेवा, साधु संघ, Vaishnava Siddha Sadhu Sangha is same, Jiva Daya, and the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Okay.
I should write it actually. Vaishnava Seva.
Jiva Daya, which means compassion to the living entities, help share the Krishna consciousness so that they also understand their situation, because that is what pleases the Lord a lot. Lord Shri Krishna at the conclusion of Bhagavad Gita says, Arjuna, the one who shares his wisdom with others is the most dear to me. That is the aspect of Jiva Daya. Vaishnav Seva also pleases the Krishna a lot, the Lord a lot, because by that we are serving his dear devotees. And third is Nama Ruchi, the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. So if you engage in these three activities, your door back to Godhead is open.
One again question from this is Jeev Seva. So what should we do in the our day-to life? Means cockroaches in
Correct.
kitchen. We have to kill them.
So for that, okay, I'll just mute you, Dr. Sarita. There is a background noise. When you have to speak, you can unmute again. So your question is about Jiva Daya. How do we actually practice Jiva Daya? For that, we need to first of all study scriptures to understand what is Jiva Daya. A homework for you, 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 1st verse. Please read the purport of it. Prabhupada defines what is Daya, what is the meaning of compassion. All right. So 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 1st verse, purport. The meaning of compassion and Daya is described there. Please read it. Once you understand it, your answer would automatically be answered by that. All right. I mean, your question would be answered by that. Anything else, Dr. Sarita?
Thank you. Thank you.
Prabhuji, we have a question on Zoom, which is typed out. What happens to the subtle elements when the soul goes back to Godhead? This question is from Mr. Ram.
It gets diluted. Going back to Godhead means to dilute our subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So they are nothing but matter. So we are spirit. We don't take anything matter back to the spiritual world. So just like a body is burnt to ashes, similarly, by the power of one's spiritual sadhana, and the sadhaka burns away one's subtle body. Hare Krishna.
The next question is from Mrs. Avanti Pawar. She's asking if we compare human body with clothes, then humans may start less respecting their body. That may lead to less health conscious people, unhealthy people everywhere, frequent suicides, etc. What's your thought about this?
Suicides and uncleanliness does not happen like that. It's all the, it's all the state of your mind. Mind can exist in three states: goodness, passion, and ignorance. This is subject matter explained in detail in Bhagavad Gita. You can refer to the 14th, 17th, and 18th chapter. If your mind is in goodness, you would know how to balance your physical well-being, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. If your mind is in passion, which is called as mode of passion, then you are more ought to be conscious about your physical well-being, and you'll mainly would disregard your spiritual well-being. And definitely you'll have least to do with your emotional and mental well-being also. So on physical, when your mind is in passion, you are more or less bothered about your physical well-being. And when your mind is in ignorance, then you are not bothered about your well-being or others' well-being. You are just, at that point of time, you are what you call as in today's world, a jihadi. What is jihadi? A terrorist. That is a state, which means causes destruction to the self, causes destruction to the others. So now the question arises, how do we raise our mind from ignorance to passion, passion to goodness? And that is the subject matter explained in Bhagavad Gita. So let me ask this question to all of you here. How many of you have studied Bhagavad Gita? If, once again, all of you can have your cameras on, you can raise your hand. How many of you have studied the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita? Those whose cameras is not on, maybe can type in, or just say yes or whatever way. Okay, some of you. So let me put it this way. How many of you would like to get through once more the review of all 18 chapters in 18 days? If we do this evening program like this, 1 hour every day. So maybe after 8th May, we might start for 18 days. So I don't see everyone's hand here. Maybe you can type in the chat box so I get to know. And those who are on the online YouTube, maybe they can say yes or no. So we get to know how many of you are actually interested to study about Bhagavad Gita. So the question, I forgot whoever had asked the question. So it's a state of mind that determines not just a piece of knowledge. And that state of mind is cultivated by how we engage our mind. If we engage our mind in spiritual subject matter and sadhana, then we cultivate goodness. And then you naturally learn to balance out everything. For example, Pandavas, Bhim Sen, do you think he was ignoring his physical well-being? I mean, do you think like Bhim Sen was ignoring his physical well-being? He was a highly spiritually advanced person. Similarly with Arjuna, he was the best of the bowmen. Talk about Nakul, Sahadev, and Yudhishthira Maharaj. All right. What's next?
There's a question from YouTube. This is from Mr. Ashok Chaudhary. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, is it possible multiple souls enter into a single body? Please clarify.
Yes. When another soul enters the body, then you are said to be possessed. That is what is like a single mobile with multiple SIM. You have a mobile with 2 SIMs. So it's something like... So when you have another soul within your body, that's when you become ghostly. Okay. Now don't expect you will have a dozen of soul entering within your body. That doesn't happen like that. So I guess even smartphone is only available for 2 SIM cards, right? All right. What's next?
Okay, this is a question from Mr. Vivek. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, how would you explain the reincarnation with respect to death of a newborn child immediately after delivery?
So the process of reincarnation is still the same. Either the newborn is dead after taking birth, or the mother, kills the child in the womb. Whatever is the process, death is death. Once the child is dead, or whoever is the dead, body anyways has to die. The process of reincarnation continues as it is. But there is an exception. Exception is suicide. If somebody commits suicide, then he does not get a body immediately. For example, every one of us are born with our expiry date written on our forehead. This is the literal meaning. Don't go and look at your forehead very carefully in the mirror to figure out what's your expiry date now. Or don't zoom in with the camera and try to take a picture at different angles. What's expiry date? That's not what I mean. I have a literal meaning of it. So, which means when you're born with your expiry date, and somebody prematurely tries to destroy the body. Let's say somebody is supposed to live for 70 years and has given up the body at the age of 40. For the next 30 years, that fellow is going to become a ghost, and all the friends and the family members are going to have a wonderful time for the next 30 years with this ghost. This ghost is going to torment them, trouble them, and going to do a lot of things in their life. And these are real life stories, you know. What else can I say? I don't want to say more things right now, but that's a fact. Okay. What's next?
This is a question from Mr. Gautam Krishi. Trading in futures and options, intraday or position, क्या इसका income जुए में आता है?
I really didn't got it. Are they here to ask a question, or they're typing in?
On the YouTube. This is a question from the YouTube, Prabhuji.
I can see the question now.
Is it gambling? Yeah.
जुआ में आता है.
I think is it gambling?
See, no, he's writing few things here. If you're talking about gambling, yes. If you're talking about trading in future, I don't know what exactly. Fine, we can skip this question. Unless he clarifies. I don't want to speculate on his question now.
Okay.
Let's go ahead.
Okay. There's a question on Zoom from Gopika Nair. Hare Krishna, we saw that the thought we have at the time of death is the type of body we take. But isn't it said that depending on the type of karma, you get the next life? Kindly enlighten.
Correct. So kind of karma you do, definitely that has an influence. But the point is, the subtlety of karma is whenever you perform an action, it creates an impression. And when you perform certain action repeatedly, it is strengthening that impression. And whatever impression is the strongest is what you are attached to. And that is what manifests in your consciousness at the end of your life. Therefore, everyday spiritual practice is so important to strengthen the spiritual impression. All right?
Thank you, Prabhuji. There's a question on Zoom from Jayashri Mataji. Can you unmute and ask your question, Mataji? We're not able to hear you.
Is she online? I think she got signed out. All right. So I guess there are no more questions now. So shall we
Prabhuji, we have a couple of questions from yesterday. With your permission, can I ask those questions?
If those candidates are online, so you can ask them to ask themselves. But if they're not online, then we can skip it.
Okay.
Do we know to whom those questions belong? And if yes, if they're online, then they can ask themselves.
Okay. I don't think they are online.
Okay, we'll go with one liner. Let's go quickly. We see Shiba Thomas have a question. If she's online, she can go ahead. Yes, Shiba ji, you can unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams.
Yes, Danvas.
I'm calling from Kerala.
Yes, please.
I want to ask you if those who are committing suicide and those who are dying in road traffic accidents, whether they become ghosts. Thank you.
Well, those who have committed suicide, yes. Road accidents are accidents. They could be because of their, past karmic reaction. Not necessarily a case of a suicide. So this is actually a gray area because at the time when the sages lived, at the time when scriptures were written, there was never a case of road accident. Have you ever heard a bullock cart got into an accident with another bullock cart and all the passengers on the bullock cart died in an accident? or the horse cart, कहते हैं, smashed against the tree or the pole on the street, the horse died, the passenger died, and the driver died. This is all the modern day means of the कहते हैं, death. So not really sure about it. If those who die in car accident, what will happen to them? Because these are modern day creation of, dying early, I would say. But suicide, and for that, yes, the people become ghosts. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I think there's one last question from Ishita. What is the difference between mind and soul?
What's the difference between mind and soul? Soul is the root of consciousness. R-O-O-T. Root, origin of consciousness. Mind is the root of consciousness. R-O-U-T-E. So the desires of the soul manifest through the medium of mind, and it interacts with the external world through the means of the body. To give you another simple example, it's like mind is like a bridge connecting the spiritual realm with the physical realm. All right. So I guess we'll pause here.
Last question. This is from Mr. Sudhanshu. Are false ego and ego same? This is the last one.
Ego means our identity. Ego means I. False I. If you replace ego with I, false I, which means misidentification. So when a person thinks I am this body, that is called as false I. So when you have a false I, there is also a true I. True I means when one understands and realizes that he is spirit soul, then it is called as true I. And now you replace I with ego again, it becomes true ego. So true ego is to know who we are in actuality. And false ego means our misunderstanding about our identity. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Prabhuji, there's one Mr. Suresh who has raised his hand on Zoom. So if we have your permission, we can take that as a last question.
Okay. Because I believe everyone will be hungry for the dinner. It's getting too late.
Okay. This is the last question. Suresh,
we'll take the last.
Unmute yourself. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Hare Krishna. All right, till the time Sureshi unmutes himself, if I can do a little exercise, generally I like to do it just to interact with the audience. Once again, if it's possible for audience to switch on the camera and one by one, if they can just tell us where are they from, so at least we know who we are interacting with here. Sureshi, uncle, you can unmute yourself now if possible. We can see you on the camera. Okay, well, I guess some network issue at their end. I see Preetham, right? Uncle, अगर आप question लिख सकते हैं, would be helpful because looks like there is an issue with your. Okay, fine. Right. So Dr. Sachin Kasit from Pune, Sudhir from Bombay, Mother Maithili from Maharashtra. Preetham, I guess I remember you from our previous programs, right? From New Jersey, am I correct? Do the people have the right to unmute themselves? Okay. So, fine. I guess I see Neha Goyal from Megapolis, Mystic. Correct? Can you all unmute yourself? Is it or something is a limitation to unmute?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji? Hello, Prabhuji?
Yeah, now I think it's unmuted.
Hello,
Yes.
Prabhuji, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Yeah, Prabhuji, you're right. You recognized me. I had last time attended your Gita sessions last year in November.
Okay, 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 okay. Good to see
From
you
New
again.
Jersey.
Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for recognizing.
Hare Krishna. We have Amlan Kanti Prabhu.
Yeah, Guruji, I am from Gurgaon.
Oh, good now. Okay, okay, okay. Dipali Singh ji.
Namaskar, Prabhuji. I'm from Blue Ridge, Pune.
Oh, Blue Ridge. Oh, interesting. Okay. Okay, okay, okay. We have our Abha. She is also from Blue Ridge, I remember. Okay, okay. Sonali Bharti seems familiar. Probably have attended previous program. Okay, Jayashri also from Blue Ridge. Okay, Sonali Bharti, UK, now in Pune, Blue Ridge. Okay, so some of them are from Blue Ridge only. Okay, Dr. Saita, fine. All right, so I guess thank you all for joining us for today evening. It's pretty late now.
Again, sorry, I was my computer was interrupted in between. So
oh,
I
yes,
could not,
Sureshji. Yes, yes.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. My
Hare
question
Krishna.
is, if somebody
Mother Medhavni, or maybe Vishwakiran, we can ask them to write a question on WhatsApp. We can have audio call with Sureshji. You can share Vishwakiran's WhatsApp number with Sureshji. I can talk to him right after this.
Okay.
Okay. Uncle wants to ask a question. Uncle, I'll give you a WhatsApp number, my WhatsApp number. आप उस पे call कर लीजिए, and I'll take your question on the call. All right? We can speak right after this because आपका शायद internet नहीं चल रहा है. So I will quit now, Mother Medhavni. You can give Uncle or post Vishwakiran Pru's number on the group. And you can maybe ask Sureshji also if he can give his number. I'll call him up right away and then I'll take his question then. Thank you all for joining. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. I've sent you a message, Sudhir Prabhuji. Can you give me your number? And also I've posted Vishwakiran Prabhuji's number. So thank you very much for joining in. So two quick reminders. One is to please register yourself in the Evolve Pune website if you've not already done, and please attempt the quizzes. Secondly, if you prepared any notes or key points on these sessions, you could share it with your group admin, and we also have the WhatsApp group open. So we request you to update your comments and feedback in the WhatsApp group so we can incorporate your suggestions in the forthcoming sessions. So thank you very much for attending this session, and we look forward to meeting all of you at 7 p.m. tomorrow for the fourth topic of the series. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Sudhir Prabhu, have you got my message? Can you just give me your number on the chat?
Mataji, it is for Suresh Prabhu, not Sudhir Prabhu.
Okay, I can't find him on the participants list.